Damn, this magnet on here, it always catches the measuring spoon. It's so annoying. I know. Yeah, it drives me nuts. I'm like, the salt was like going flying the other day. Hey everyone, I'm Nea and welcome to today's episode of Recipe Drop, where I am making a tomato tart with ricotta and mascarpone. It looks impressive, but it is actually pretty easy, and because they're in season, I'm using Sungolds. However, you can definitely just use cherry heirloom tomatoes as well. I'm gonna start by making the crust, then make the filling, then we're gonna assemble it, and then at the very end, we're gonna top it off with fresh Sungold tomatoes and basil. We're gonna start off by making the tart dough, and for that, I have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Then I'm also gonna add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and just kind of mix this together. So for the butter, I'm using very cold butter, so this is 1 stick. And instead of using a food processor or cutting it into cubes, I'm gonna use a grater. It's easy and it also doesn't require a lot of cleanup. I'm just gonna grate it right in. Kind of looks like a Monterey Jack or cheddar. I am just pressing the flour into the butter until it kind of resembles a coarse sand. Tart and pie doughs are one of those things. I feel like I should be really good at a pie dough or crust dough, but it's always been the one thing that has given me the most trouble. And I think that's because it's just so temperature dependent. So I probably should have done this before I started this. So if you're at home and you're making this, do this step ahead of time. But I am gonna mix together 1 egg yolk and a little bit of water. So to the egg yolk, I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of water to start. Just gonna mix this together. This is just, again, to make sure that the butter doesn't actually melt or soften enough. So you wanna keep the butter as cold as possible. All right, so I'm gonna pour it in. So now I'm just combining everything with my hands until all the flour has been incorporated. I'm just gonna flatten it slightly. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Sam.
Dough.
This is what a producer is for. Grabbing plastic wrap. This is now gonna chill in the fridge for an hour. So it's been about an hour, and here we have our chilled pie dough. I am gonna dust a little bit of flour onto the surface. It's really solid still. And we're gonna roll this out to a 12.5-inch circle, or at least bigger than that, because the tart pan that I'm using is 9.5 inches, and you want it to be at least 3 inches wider than your tart pan. So as you can see, I'm kind of lifting it up every now and then to just coat the bottom with a bit more flour. Here is our tart pan with a removable bottom. Because we don't have parchment paper under here to kind of like lift it up, I'm gonna kind of roll it up like this, and we're gonna drape it over. Just kind of eyeball it though to make sure that you're kind of doing it on the middle. And now I'm gonna go in and gently press it into the corners without kind of pressing too much into the sides. All right, so are you ready for the best part? We're gonna take our rolling pin and we're gonna go right over the tart pan. Look at that. I know, every little crevice is filled and it's perfectly even on top. I'm gonna chill this in the fridge for 20 minutes, but the idea is to kind of re-solidify the butter in the dough so that it doesn't shrink too much when it goes in the oven. Okay, so I don't actually have a fork, so I'm just gonna use a knife, and I'm just gonna poke this kind of all around. This is gonna help to just keep it from like puffing up a little bit. Then I'm gonna use 1 sheet of parchment paper. I'm gonna scrunch it up, just kind of gently place it in the tart shell without really like denting any of the crust. And here I have some pie weights. You can get these on Amazon. You can get them at pretty much any like cooking store, or you can also use dried beans too. That's what I use at home. So now I'm gonna parbake this at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. While that is parbaking in the oven, we're gonna move on to the filling. And for the filling, I'm gonna chop up a little bit of basil. This is about a tablespoon, or it's gonna be about a tablespoon. But with basil or pretty much any herb, I would rather always have more than enough than too little. So that's why usually I don't even bother like measuring out chopped herbs. Okay, I'm gonna add this right into this bowl. I am gonna juice half lemon as well. And we're gonna use 3 teaspoons of that lemon juice. Then for the actual cheese portion of this tart, I'm using half ricotta and half mascarpone. when I first developed this recipe, I was actually using stracchino. I hope I'm saying that right. But then I realized that it's actually not the easiest cheese to find. So I was trying to think, okay, what is easier to find that is closely resembled to it? And honestly, there's not a ton, but I figured mascarpone and ricotta could be a good option, and it actually worked really well. So for this, I'm using 4 ounces of ricotta and 4 ounces of mascarpone. Then I'm gonna add 2 large eggs, and this is gonna help to just get the custard to set a little bit more and to make it a little bit more quiche-like, I guess. And I'm also gonna grate in 1 clove of garlic. Now I'm gonna add in 3 teaspoons of lemon juice, and this is half a teaspoon measurer, so that's why you'll see me adding 6. Now I'm gonna add in a teaspoon and 1/4 of Diamond Crystal kosher salt. And now I'm gonna go in with a very generous amount of black pepper. This thing's so awesome. I love that it's just one-handed. I really like this recipe because it kind of reminds me of my grandma. She used to make a lot of quiches and tarts, and I guess this is kind of quiche adjacent, I would say, but it's less heavy on the egg and more heavy on the cheese. Yeah, she makes one with like the crust has Parmesan in it, so it's really like cheesy and it almost gets kind of crispy. I think she kind of will swap veggies out depending on like the season. She uses a lot of tomato, she'll use asparagus, uses a lot of cheese. I feel like they're very cheese heavy. When I was in Sweden a few weeks ago, me and my cousin were joking because I was gonna go over there for dinner. What if she has a quiche? And she did. She did, and it was great. Okay, so this is done. You can see it's super smooth. If you have little cheese clumps, that's totally fine, but just know you're gonna have to whisk a little bit longer, or you might have to use an electric whisk. You're gonna need 1 heirloom tomato and then a whole bunch of Sungold. But for the heirloom, I'm just gonna slice it into really thin slices, and we're gonna assemble this onto the custard in the tart. What I decided to do with these tomatoes is give them a little season before adding them to the tart. So I'm just gonna do a little drizzle of olive oil and some flaky sea salt. Just gonna give them a little toss, and they're just gonna sit here for a minute or 2 while we wait for the crust to be done. One thing about me is I taste probably too often. Like I never leave the office full at all because I've just been like constantly tasting and snacking on everything. But that's good. Salt level is good, and it's also really bright from the lemon. All right, she is a little less golden than I would have liked, but I don't want to overbake it. Not yet, at least. I'm just gonna place it on this cooling rack and remove the beads. Oh, one's loose. But now you can see that the pie beads really kept the bottom and the sides from kind of puffing up, which is really nice, because now there's more room for the filling. All right, now I'm gonna pour in the custard. Be sure to get every little last bit. I know it doesn't really come up all the way to the sides, but that is because we want to have room for these tomatoes. It doesn't really matter if your heirloom is really big or if it's too small. Honestly, better that it's big because I like to kind of overlap them a little bit as well. Pretty. And the fact that we kind of marinated them ahead of time is going to give the finished tart like a whole nother depth of flavor, I think. And honestly, when it's baked off, it looks really pretty as it is, but it's gonna look even prettier when we add all the Sungolds. Now this is gonna bake in the oven for about 40 minutes until the filling is really nice and set and the crust is golden brown and the tomatoes are super softened. Looks so cute. So while we're waiting for the tart to finish baking, I'm gonna start cutting up the Sungolds. And here I have, I know this looks like a lot, but it's 2 pints of Sungolds. For aesthetic reasons, make sure that you're cutting them in half lengthwise like this, or so that the stem piece is on the bottom or the top, so that you're not cutting like through the stem piece. So yeah, we have a lot of tomatoes to cut here. This is probably the most time-consuming and tedious part of the whole recipe. All right, I'm gonna cut these and I'll see you when I'm done. So just with the heirloom tomatoes, I'm gonna do a nice drizzle of olive oil and then also a bit of flaky sea salt. This might seem like a lot of tomato to put on this tart, but I think it's really nice to have the little burst of freshness with the cooked tomato too. I'm just gonna stir these to coat. So I actually made a swap. And the nice thing about the tart too is that it kind of, as it bakes, it kind of comes off the side a little bit of the pan. So it becomes really easy to just remove like this. This is the best thing about these removable pans. So now I'm gonna layer on all the halved Sungold tomatoes, and this is gonna take a little bit of time, but I think it's kind of the fun part. I'm kind of just gonna organically place them and then fill in any empty spots, and I thought that looked really nice. Okay, so you can see now there's tomatoes all over the tart, and now I'm gonna just go in and fill in the blank spots. All right, here we have a really sad little basil plant. It's been well picked, but this is actually perfect because I wanna use the really small ones. I have an excuse to use the tweezers. So I am just kind of picking off the small basil leaves that look really nice. I feel like towards the end of like a basil plant's life, a lot of them start to look kind of sad and brown, but these look pretty good. One of the things that I have the hardest time with when it comes to food styling is I like for everything to look super neat, but with this job, I feel like I'm kind of learning that like less is more, and to kind of just place things naturally. That's at least what our food stylist here has kind of taught me, and that has definitely helped. You definitely don't need tweezers for this part, but if you have, you definitely do. If you have them, it's really fun.
I feel like kitchen appliances could be such a black hole that you could just get sucked into.
Oh my God, I know. It's like when you go to the grocery store and you see all the little appliances to like cut a banana and like cut a strawberry. I'm like, it's so specific. There you have it, a beautiful and, in my opinion, very tasty tomato and cheese tart that is perfect for if you're having guests over for dinner, or is also a really great use of in-season produce, aka tomatoes. And to serve, I'm gonna use this plate by Dance. It's their Generation collection, and I really like it because it's just really timeless and sleek, and I think it looks really good with a lot of different types of food, honestly, if you have to go by color. So yeah, so I'm choosing this one for the tart. So this is kind of the challenging part, is cutting the tart without completely ruining the tomato layer. So I'm gonna use a serrated knife for this. Yeah, the tomatoes are kind of just gonna get pushed to the side, and that's fine. All right, let's see. All right, this actually worked pretty well. Look at that. I think my grandma would be proud. I'm gonna send her this recipe. Thank you. Oh, it looks so good. I really like how you can also kind of see the tomato layer, the bottom one, as well as the top, and especially since they're different colors too. All right, I'm gonna have a little taste. The filling is really creamy and also pretty bright, and I love the texture contrast between that and the crispy tart crust and also the fresh tomatoes on top. I actually like to serve this cold, but you can definitely serve it warm as well. I would also serve this with maybe a side salad or something. So if you want this recipe, you can find it linked below in the description. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. And please let me know if you try it. I would love to hear from you.